ahead and record. All right, we call it to order at 7:01 p.m. And do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda?
I did not send out the minutes to the board, so I would ask to move the August 17th minutes to the next meeting.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. All right, board norms. Board norms are to maintain our focus, communicate respectfully, be present, keep the board productive and effective, and respect the agenda. Those are our board norms. All right, so we are getting some members of the public trickling in here. And let's see, correspondence. I think the only correspondence we had is from Mike, I believe. Is that correct?
Yep, I did have some correspondence. And so a voter reached out to me, and they found out when they called their town hall that we had canceled the survey that we were going to do to find out what our community valued on, the different options that we were looking at. And that voter was wanting to give input on that. And so she asked if it's still going to be put out to the public. I did explain we were trying not to confuse issues right now, but anyway, yeah. So she wanted to know if we are going to still ask the public input on those questions.
I think that's a really good point, Mike. Maybe actually, because the communications group has formed, that might be something that they would like to take up moving forward, because I know that getting the feedback of the public is going to be critical to the mission of that group. But I don't know if you want to talk about it now in correspondence, or maybe you want to talk about it under the communications committee. It's up to you, whatever you guys want to do.
Al, this is Keegan.
Yes,
Thank you. I also received an email from a parent of a Jamaica student. So I just have a clarifying question around what correspondence means. So if this is obvious and I just don't know, then here's the opportunity for a nice human new board member experience learning moment. When I receive an email from a concerned person, do I forward that email onto the entire board, or do I address it and then share out what the concerns were? Like, what's the right protocol for how we do that sort of
yeah,
thing?
you can certainly forward it to myself, Bill, and the vice chair and the clerk. Any of the yeah, that would be fine. And then from there we can disseminate it and bring it up at a board meeting.
Okay. Is it too late for me to forward that on to you now? That way you at least have it. And it's going to come up with the reopening plan business anyway, because that's what the email was referencing, just kind of wanting some clarity around what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think another piece of it, we can dovetail into the communications goal of like what the communications team is working on. But I'll forward it to you so it's at least part of our correspondence record. Thank you for the clarification. And
yeah, no, great.
I was supposed to know that.
Great
I'm
question.
sorry I didn't.
And I see that Joe has his hand raised. Maybe you have a clarification on that?
No, if we're going to clarify what constitutes correspondence, maybe we could also talk about some things that perhaps don't constitute correspondence, such as Facebook Messenger things and personal emails and ways that public might reach out to board members. I mean, we have an official board email. There are ways to communicate with us, and then I don't think social media is necessarily the place to communicate with your board member. And I know I've been receiving a fair number of things through Facebook that I don't really want to consider them correspondence.
Joe, I think that's an excellent point. Yeah, we should be reached through the appropriate means and channels, and social media is really probably not the appropriate place. I mean, certainly we can redirect them to, your board email. That way, it's official and part of the record. So, all right, go ahead, Dana. Did you?
I was just going to say, we give them the Zoom information for the next meeting and they present it themselves. Speak in person. It means more than email bouncing back and forth to email. So I just assume they present it in person on a Zoom meeting or when we get back to in person.
It's a good point, Dana. I mean, certainly it's probably the prerogative of the person who's bringing the information. Maybe somebody might not feel comfortable being on a Zoom, but certainly you're right. If they feel comfortable to raise it, then by all means, yeah, this is the right form for sure. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we don't necessarily have to not count it as correspondence if it comes through Messenger. I do hear what you guys are saying, and maybe it should be redirected to the board. But like in this particular message did come to me through Messenger, but I still thought it was a correspondence that the person wanted to know an answer to, so I counted it. But certainly, I always that's kind of my litmus test is, do I think this person wants me to bring it up generically? Like some people said, some people are a little shy and don't want to say things on the meetings, but anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, appreciate it, Mike. I mean, absolutely. There's certainly nothing wrong with us taking information that we receive from the community, call it correspondence or whatever you want to call it, and bringing it to this forum. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But
all right,
yeah, if things like that, social media, I would probably stray from that and direct them to the proper channels, our board emails, etc. But
right. I understand having the email trail.
Yep. Perfect. All right. And was there, okay, so Keegan, did you want to speak to that correspondence? Or did you already forward it?
I just forwarded it a short while ago.
Okay.
It was from a parent of a Jamaica student who had, it appeared as though they were receiving part of the information that they were looking for. After reading through the email and a couple of exchanges that we had back and forth, I think the parent is more just looking for some support around accessing childcare services during this remote time and what, if any, resources might be available. So I know that the governor had mentioned last week that he's got these plans in the works for these childcare hubs. That's kind of down the road a little bit, requiring some legislation to take place. But just being aware that the decision to delay the start of in-person instruction came from a place of health and wellness and safety first. And anything we can do, and maybe this is where like the communications team can kind of come in, just kind of having like a storehouse of available resources that our community members can tap into, or at least be aware of as parents start to think about how can I best support my student from home in this remote learning environment. So it was kind of like one of those super concerned, but peeling back the layers, it was more around how can you all help me with this situation. So that's all. You can see the email that I kind of shot back and forth.
I saw it. I appreciate it. Thanks, Keegan.
Thank you.
Yeah, Keegan, I would just say in general, the principal is usually the best person in the community to contact because they have the most intimate knowledge of the relationships and networks, and anything global we'll give to them for their dissemination of their pathways, because that's what families have become used to, whether it's an email that comes from the principal on a regular basis, or it's the website from the particular school, or Facebook post from a particular school. I found that over the years, that has been the most That has been the fastest way for parents to get their issues, dealt with and supported.
Okay. Can I ask a follow-up or clarifying question about that?
Sure.
In general, do the principals also share out any notification to the parents to the board so that we are aware of any conversations or decisions that are being made building level? Or is this more like, nope, trust that any information that comes from the principal goes to the family, and that way like the relationship is between the principal and the family and not the board so much?
That is not normal protocol for the principal to copy the board on every communication they do to the family.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, I will move on to that, but we're not going to do that. So just a question for everybody here. Did anybody have any issue getting into the Zoom? Because I know that Zoom globally throughout the Northeast there were issues and challenges. In fact, I dealt with some professionally today, so I wasn't sure if anybody had the similar experience or if everybody was able to get in, seeing that we only have 23 participants at this point. So I just, no. All right, good. Moving on to skipping approving the minutes of August 17th. We'll take that up next time. Old business. We have nothing under old business, so let's move on to new business. Reopening of schools, September 8th update. I believe we're going to go principal by principal. So let's see, Pam. Do I see Pam?
I'm here.
There she is. She's right below me. It's all right.
Pam is here. Pam was taking her husband out for his birthday dinner.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Wait,
made
have
him
you
finish
already
up
done
his
that, Pam,
last
or you're
beverage
going
very
to?
quick. No, we already did it. I made him finish up his final beverage quickly.
We could have put you to the last.
That's okay. I don't want to speak for Craig and Scotty, but today we met for quite a lengthy amount of time to talk about the West River Elementary School openings and submitted some communication on some synchronous and asynchronous opportunities. We are each meeting with our staffs to create what we're calling a master schedule as to when synchronous classes will happen and how asynchronous will happen. So I have not done that yet. I plan to do that tomorrow and Wednesday to really come up with that. So there'll be links and communications out on that. We're hoping to do the 90, 60, and 30. So 90 minutes of English language arts, 60 minutes of math, and 30 minutes of intervention. And then add specials and writing, science, and social studies to their day as well. Our suggestion is going to be that the teachers set up appointments, reoccurring appointments, so that families do not have to worry about which Zoom is which. And it will be reoccurring every day in the same Zoom meeting. Everything in terms of instruction will be recorded, and so then that can be sent out asynchronously to families as well. So that's our plan in terms of coming up with that. The 90 minutes will certainly not be 90 minutes of Zoom for a child, but that first 10 minutes or so of direct instruction, and then working out to small groups and individuals. So each building has a basic, will be basically similar, and then depending on the community and configuration of that building, it may be a little bit different, unique to each building. I don't know if the other two, Craig and Scotty, want to add something to that, but we tried to do it so that the experience for West River Elementary Schools would be similar.
Thanks, Pam.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Scotty, I see your video's up. You want to go next?
Sure, I'm happy to. I just want to say thanks to Pam and to Craig for getting together with me. We look back at the recommendations from the state, and health and safety, equity, relationships, and remote learning were the four like kind of key components of what we should be doing. So we recognize the need for classroom meetings, and we're going to try to promote them to happen as often as possible, even for just the social emotional part of development, and or maybe I should say especially. But then ELA math and intervention, we agreed to a 30, 60, 90 well before COVID came around. So we're really just going to try to make regular during this hard time. And what we also thought that we could add to that, maybe some themed writers workshops, science and social studies lessons, and try to weave that stuff in throughout the week, using the time that we have in the afternoons, because ELA math and our win block or skills block would take up the whole morning. We'll also, at my school, we're going to be doing what we call Wednesdays Rock, which is really the brainchild of Suzanne Paw, our tech integrationist and art teacher. And what they do is all of the specialists get together, and they plan a day where each child, it's a Wednesday, so the kids aren't expected to be doing their classwork, but we know that parents really need some help with structure on those days. And as a parent, I could say I need help with structure on those days. So so the specialists, each one of them puts out a different lesson. So there'll be 5 or 6 different lessons, and then the kids have to pick 1 or 2, and then we get their attendance and they get some choice. I heard from Suzanne that one of her first lessons is a scavenger hunt to find all the art supplies in the house. These are really good, really creative people that are really thinking. We also are trying to, at Newbrook, we're trying to roll out in a way that's going to be really healthy for teachers. And so I just want to take a moment to say that a community member, Jen Stanchfield, who is a trainer, and she's actually nationally known. She lives in Newfane, and she's going to be coming to Newbrook Wednesday morning for the whole morning to teach us online games, to teach us engaging activities that you can use during the Zoom. She's doing the whole thing in a Zoom, and she's going to teach us how to break out into chat rooms and a lot of other little tricks that we can use, which I'm really excited about. My staff meeting will be on the Thursday morning, my formal staff meeting, where I'll be going through the nuts and bolts of this opening plan. But all of the principals did want to mention that, we were tasked with coming up with a good opening plan, but I really need to make sure that my teachers are feeling that it's an adequate plan and that it'll work for us. So I'm presenting this plan, but I want you to know that my staff are the experts, and they're going to be the ones who with me will determine if it's doable and how exactly it's doable. That's really all I have, unless there are any questions.
Thanks, Scotty.
Thank you, guys.
I think we'll come back to questions maybe after Craig. Maybe we do elementary and then Leland and Gray. Go ahead, Craig.
Sure. So, I'm lucky that I'm able to come in third here, because a lot of the foundational stuff is stuff that Pam had already talked about, and Scotty reinforced with the fact that we were still looking to provide education in the same way we were doing before, with a certain amount of time that is essential for core learning. And so we're really coming across our schedule and building in our remote learning by just continuing on what we have found important before. So we're just going to continue on with that. And Scotty had talked about what specials look like. And I know he's going to do a Wednesday Rock. Jamaica and I think, are going to deviate a little bit from that and still provide students with access to library, art, and music throughout the week, so they still get that opportunity for enrichment to teach to the whole child. But really, we're going to try to really focus on providing some really nice instruction that is sustainable not only for the families, but also for our teachers, and make it comfortable for everybody, but also be responsive to people who are doing remote learning, but also who are doing the home-based supported learning as well. So we're gonna do it all, and we're gonna do it really well, but we're gonna just base it on the foundation of a certain amount of times we're given to core subjects.
Great, thanks. Before we jump to Bob, did anybody have any questions for the elementary level? And I do see Lindsay's hand.
Yes, thank you, Al. I was just wondering if everybody could or somebody could speak a little bit to the school supported home study or whatever that option was called, and how that's going to, will that change at all with this full remote start? And if so, what does the transition look like when things go back in theoretically November, or how that whole thing works out?
Unless somebody else is dying to answer this question, I would love to answer it, Lindsay. And Lindsay actually asked me this question herself as a parent with her parent hat on. So Lindsay, we are really working to make sure that we keep these expectations of families, students, and staff very different for the two groups. And the reason why is because even though right now they might look similar, I would guess that Newbrook's going to be back in school not in the too far future. My hope is that we're back really soon. And so we don't want to have a family that opted for the school supported home study. We don't want to have them switching back and forth and upsetting their schedule just because the rest of us have to. And I think that's one of the draws of that. So what we're going to be doing is, and I can read you what we put in our plan. Our school supported home study students will be able to take advantage of many of the opportunities above. And that was all of those different synchronous and asynchronous opportunities when doing their assigned work, and they will formally check in with their teacher on Wednesdays. They will also need, and this is the part that is interesting, they will also need to either check in or turn in work on a daily basis so we can account for their required daily attendance as we report to the AOE. So Lindsay, that is going to be the part that is going to require, like, if a family decided, you know, we can do with this all on the weekend when when the two adults are home, you know, they could get all the work done with the kids on Saturday afternoon. That's still okay, but somebody's going to need to let us know that the kids are either attending one of the Zooms, like the morning meeting, or doing something every day, because that is what the AOE requires of me. So I have to report my attendance and I have to be over 50%. So that is the one caveat that I really have to mention, because it is kind of it makes it a little different than what we were hoping for. We were hoping that there wouldn't need to be any direct communication on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday for those kids, but we still will need attendance. That's my understanding, unless someone else wants to pipe in.
To be fair, the minimum level of attendance is any contact. So Bob later can speak to how he creatively dealt with this in the high school level, but any contact could literally be an email, an answer to a survey question, any kind of check-in that will account for attendance on that. So it is a very, very small and low bar.
Pam, did you have more? Pam, did you have anything to add to that? I saw that you were unmuted.
No, thank you. No, I think the idea that anytime the student interacts in Google Classroom, whether it's to complete an assignment, to respond to a comment that the teacher made on a piece of writing or reading, counts, if you will, on attendance. And I do have to say, due to the small nature at JVS, my charge to the administrative assistant will be to check in with families that we haven't heard from.
Thanks. Dana, did you have your hand raised?
Yeah, but Lindsay asked my question, so we're all set.
Okay. Keegan?
Thank you. This is a clarifying question for Scotty related to Jennifer Stanchfield. She is an amazing facilitator. I've been to a few of her workshops. I'm wondering, is the work she's doing with Newbrook specific to Newbrook, or is she working with all of the elementary schools?
No, it is specific to Newbrook. My staff, when we met, I had a voluntary staff meeting like at the beginning of August, and I asked them like what they were nervous about and what they were worried about, and they just really were. At the time, we thought we were all going back, and they were concerned about recess and giving kids games that they could play on their own, independent games, that because you're allowed to use objects, but you're not allowed to use the playground, you know, the slide, for instance. So and a couple different staff members had mentioned Jen Stanchfield, and actually Bill had worked with her in the past as well. So I've worked with her. I worked with her at Cranhattan and at BAMS. So I called her and she was very interested, and she happened to be home on this first day. So it's really just a really lucky thing that I kind of lucked out. So I hope that answers your question. Lindsay, did I answer your question before? Because I want to make sure if you have any specific questions related to your children, that you'd give me a call at work tomorrow.
I think you did, but you know I'd call you if I needed to. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments for the elementary principals? No? All right. Seeing none, moving on to Bob.
How you guys doing? So we obviously were ready to go with the 2 cohort model prior to last week's board meeting. Now we are going fully remote. We have also learned that from the spring, a couple of things about how important it is to have a daily schedule for kids and the opportunity for teachers to have FaceTime with kids and for kids to have FaceTime with teachers. So we have set up a schedule that we're hoping most kids will be able to follow on a daily basis, with office hours for each staff, department meetings built in, as well as class time. So we are anticipating that all of our kids will hopefully join those, but the staff will be recording the Zooms. And then on Wednesdays, when they have their prep day, be able to post those sessions so that the kids that can't access it synchronously will be able to get at that material. They will not be, as was pointed out earlier, the same length as a normal class period. We will not expect students to Zoom for 80 minutes in the high school. There'll be a shortened version of that, but there will be work beyond that, independent work that we'll expect them to do. So we have created those schedules in both the middle and the high school. So to answer Lindsay's question, even though it wasn't directed to the middle and high school, it does apply. The students who are going to be fully remote to begin with, obviously will gain from this advantage from us starting fully remote, because they will then be able to access those teachers directly. The challenge will be when the students return to the building after all the HVAC stuff is settled. Those fully remote students will be reverted back to not having that FaceTime with the teachers. So that is something that families are aware of. They were not expecting that. That was part of the deal. We communicate that up front. If they made their choice, they knew that they would not be gaining a lot of that FaceTime with teachers, and that they would have limited teacher support during the week, as the teachers would be teaching the live kids. So there's a little bit of gravy for those kids. They'll get some extra support in the first couple of months until that work is done. We are shifting our grading system a little bit. In the spring, we're doing a standards-based grading approach based on really the need to do something different in the first place, and the discussion that we've been going that route anyways based on our PBGR work. So we're going to continue that model rather than go backwards to letter grades. And our teachers will be working on all of that this coming week and next week on getting their curriculum ready for all of that. Power School will be standards-based. And yeah, so we're looking forward to that. One of the other things that we learned a lot about in the spring that we were going to be applying regardless of which model we were using was an increased focus on our advisories. And Johanna, if you don't mind, Al, if it's okay with you, Johanna's going to jump in and talk a little bit about that, because she's been really leading the efforts in that area. And it's work that she is really believes in, and has some consultants coming in to work with our staff on Friday as well for that. And so I'd like her to talk a little bit about what that might look like.
Great. Everybody can hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Yes, so advisory was certainly a lesson learned from the spring. We've always had an advisory program at Leland and Gray. It's kind of always been on our radar to give a little boost and a revamp to. And then the spring really highlighted that need. So we did spend some time this summer working on doing just that. So we're just being much more intentional about advisory and having each teacher be responsible for a group of students, and that teacher will be sort of the lead check-in for the handful of students that are in their advisory. So we're really excited for that and hoping that it will help streamline the communication. As you know, there are some students that, don't have internet or have really tough times at home and had a hard time with remote learning. So we're hoping by really utilizing the advisors in a more intentional way that we have fewer students who are like slipping through the cracks, if you will. And as Bob said, this Friday we have a trainer from High Five out of Brattleboro coming, similar to Scotty with Jen Stanchfield. They'll be coming in and doing some community building with the staff. As you know, we have a few new teachers. So to help us all get to know each other, and even though some people will be remote, still just celebrating the fact that we're starting a new school year together. And while it might not be ideal, it will still be awesome. And also giving us some tips and tricks for how to really implement a strong advisory program, whether we're remote or not. So yeah, it should be exciting and looking forward to getting it all going.
Johanna, just say a little bit about the advisory sessions with families and kids as we start remote.
So to begin with, we're planning to have advisory every day for a half an hour. The advisory time will be, really focused on students just developing the relationships again with the teachers and with each other. We've kept a lot of students in the same groups that they've been in for the past number of years. So once they're in high school, they stay in the same groups for 4 years. When they start in middle school, we do the best we can to keep them in the same groups for 3 years. So they really get to know each other. And the advisors will be communicating with the families and the parents on a regular basis. They will be checking in with each advisee that they have in a one-on-one situation as well. So they meet as a whole group to get to know each other and develop trust with the teacher and with each other. But then they also will check in with their advisor once a week on their own to just make sure that they're getting all the things that they need and to give any assistance that needs to happen. And the advisor will really be the lead communicator with the family. So if a student has missed a couple of Zooms in their science class, the science teacher will let the advisor know, and the advisor will call the family. One thing we learned in the spring is that there were families who were getting one phone call from every single teacher. So some families were just being bombarded with emails and phone calls, and it got very overwhelming. So the point of this is to streamline the communication through one person. It may also be the guidance counselor, but it won't be every single teacher and the guidance counselor and me and Bob. So we're hoping that with that streamlining, it'll be more efficient and direct.
One other thing that we're doing, and I'm sure the elementary folks are doing similar things, is we're arranging pickup times and dates so that students can come to the building, not in the building, but to the building to collect Chromebooks, packets of materials. The middle school has a whole take-home bundle of fun activity stuff.
It's a back-to-school bag.
Yeah, like a bag of stuff with some school supplies and things like that to take home to do some of this remote work. For the middle school, they'll also be able to come in on the front lawn and meet their teachers and do a quick, by grade level, a quick round of their classes to meet each teacher and collect those materials and their Chromebooks and so on and so forth. And the parents will have an opportunity on the common to learn a little bit about how we hope they can help manage their kids and how we can help support them. And the high school will have separate pickup times, less worried about being the teachers there, but getting the materials to them as well. And so we have all that organized and happening in the next couple of weeks. So.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Rihanna. Appreciate it. Looks like you're not done. We've got some questions out there. We've got Leanne and then Lindsay.
Actually, this is sort of for everyone, elementary, high school included. It just popped into my brain because I remember dealing with it at work today. One of our major communications providers, SV Cable, is going through a massive transition right now. I was just wondering what's in place. Should we have a huge, it doesn't go smoothly and kids are not able to connect. Do we have any plans for a packet drop off, or what would happen in that case?
Great question, Leanne. I don't know if there's a single answer for that. I think we know that that's happening. I mean, I'm a customer of theirs as well at home. I would say we are planning, at least during the fully remote time, to have some paper packets available for families if they aren't able to access. But I don't know that we have any special arrangements set up for that transition, at least at the middle and high school.
Thanks, Bob.
Oh, Pam, did you have something? Yeah, please.
Yeah, we have not planned for packet pickup per se. I think that's going to be somewhat more individual. We do have a similar plan to send books home and school supplies and things like that. So the Engage New York Math things will be sent home. The guided reading books will be sent home. So all of that will happen. I've also encouraged the teachers, again, I'll focus on the fact that Jamaica is small, to use the phone, to pick up the phone and call the kiddo or call the family. And so we've encouraged that as well at the middle and high school, because sometimes that's the way to do it. And I know in the spring, several teachers had actual lessons over the phone. So even if it's a matter of you can't connect, I can chit chat with you about an assignment that you have in front of you. So hopefully that will help to mitigate some of those difficulties during that time.
That helps, Pam. I don't work in IT, but that's how I spent the better part of my day today, was diagnosing and trying to get us online so we could function. So that's reassuring. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Great question, Leanne. Lindsay.
Thanks, Al. So I was just wondering, with this year being the craziness that it is, and assuming that there are some more families than normal choosing homeschool this year to meet the needs of their families, I'm just wondering, I know that in general in Vermont, homeschool families are able to access a certain amount of normal public school curriculum. And I guess my question is there any way that we can be providing some extra support to families that for their family they need to homeschool this year to meet their needs, even if it's things like the maybe some, applications that educational programs or whatever that are being used, that maybe those subscriptions can get, those kids can get added into the class subscription for those things, or if there's other supports that we can offer to the families that's what they needed to do for their family this year.
I'll just say for the middle and high school level, Lindsay, the access that the homeschool families typically have are band, driver's education, and sports, and other extracurriculars, drama and such. We don't get a lot of, once in a while, we get one class that kids will come in for, science maybe, that their parents aren't comfortable teaching, but we don't get a lot of that in the academic realm at the high school.
I can tackle it. We did actually have this conversation not long ago with Mr. Anton about being judicious about our communications. And there are some communications that all the families need, no matter what you have chosen in terms of your learning environment. And so depending on what they need, which is what Bob referenced, typically it is those courses, if you will, or subjects that aren't available in a traditional homeschool curriculum. So whether it's maybe a music class or an art class or things like that, we certainly can supplement. We do have some online tools that we use, and that will be, again, dependent on what cannot be provided by the homeschooling.
Thanks, man. All right, anybody else have any questions? All right, I'll throw one to you, Bob. Mr. President of the VPA, what's the latest and greatest on sports?
So we met today. Marty will be releasing a document shortly, the next day or so, that outlines all the things that are happening for us. But I can give you the nuts and bolts of it. As I think it was asked last week, we did confirm that we are okay to run sports, even if we're starting fully remote, because we're starting fully remote by choice, and we're not forced to start fully remote. So that's one of the differences. We don't have any live cases, and the state is not in step one. So we can use sports. We will obviously be outside. We just made some decisions today around spectators. You know, there's limits to the crowd size, so we put a three guest per athlete cap on our spectating. There are some schools that are allowing 0 spectators, and there are some that are just working up to the 150 public gathering number. So we decided to do 3 per kid, and we figured that would kind of get us close to that with a decent sized team. That way, visitors also can send 3 guests as well. We set up screening protocols for those kids, and talked a little bit about what will happen when the state moves us to step 3, which is when we can actually begin playing games. We're going to limit our playing of games to league games only, which is one of the requirements. I think there may be 1 or 2 non-league games that we play, but they're going to be what we consider either local or low risk non-league games. For example, Mill River, which is not allowing spectators, we consider that to be a low risk atmosphere. So we would send our kids to Mill River, whereas other places that we would not consider low risk. So we're trying to make those decisions. Marty will be working with the coaches in the league to set up that schedule. That's for the high school. For the middle school, what we're doing is, again, because the student's not in the building, there's a lot of transportation issues around kids getting to practice, and we want to not set up inequities around access. So what we're going to do is try to do high school practices right after school hours. So obviously after school hours means they have to finish their last class at 2:45 and then drive to the school. So those will probably begin, I think we said 3:45. Does that sound right, Bill? And they would go 3:45 to 5:45. And then 2 days a week from 6 to 7, there'd be some middle school skills and drills. We're not going to play, probably not going to play a lot of, we probably won't play any teams, I don't think, but we'll do those. And then I think Marty's going to work with the Saturday morning soccer crew, the rec department crew, to carve out some time for middle school to also have some slots on Saturday morning. So basically try to set up middle school to be at times when parents could drive them after work hours, that sort of thing. So that was kind of the thinking. But yeah, I mean, that's where we're at. And as soon as the state puts us in step 3, we can start playing games after everyone has their 10 practices. The state has waived physicals, the physical requirement. Usually there's a 1 or 2 year physical requirement. They've waived that for this year because it's hard to get in doctors. So we're going to plow ahead with that, but everyone will be wearing a mask all the time. Go masks. So that's what we're doing with soccer for middle and high school.
That's great. Thanks, Bob. Is there any kind of athletic sports mask that makes it more breathable? Or?
Yeah, you know, there's a company that Marty works with that is sending us a couple of those to kind of check out. I say a couple, I mean, 50 or so for us to kind of play around with and see. But in talking with Jorda and with getting the guidance from the infectious disease experts at UVM, we're trying to pay attention to what kinds of masks we're actually allowing. So some are better than others. Obviously, the ones with valves in the front, which are supposed to make it easier to breathe, you can't use because obviously if it's that easy to breathe, there's droplets coming and going. So, you have to have at least 2 layers of cloth or the disposable surgical masks. So that's what we'll be doing, and we'll have some on hand for kids that don't bring them, but it's going to be part of the requirement of the uniform. So that's the deal. But coaches, officials, and spectators will all be distanced and wearing masks at the games. If folks are not following the rules, then we'll ask them to leave.
I see a lot of subs. 3-minute rotations.
Jordan told me a great story about how she read a report, or someone she knew, I think, had run a 22-mile run in a mask, and then had written about it and talked about what that was like. And and said that, I guess he had some kind of one of the O2 monitors, pulse ox kind of thing running previously while he was doing this. And I think it was a doctor that did it. And there was no significant drop in oxygen during the 22-mile run while wearing a mask. So I'm not running 22 miles out. You know me, I barely get.
I'll do it for you.
But yeah, I think it's going to be tough. It's going to be a challenge, but that's the only way we can do it. So that's what they have to do.
That's right. Absolutely. All right. I see Dana, and then Lindsay. Is that a new hand?
Bob, how's it going with transportation to these games? Is it going to be parents having to truck individual students, or is it going to be a bus?
So it's going to be a bus, and the reason why we talked a lot about this, different schools are doing different things, and some schools are really strongly encouraging parents to bring kids to limit the bus participation. However, one of the things you have to do when you arrive on another school site is attest that your students have all been screened and that you've done that work. And so riding with parents, we felt will make that process way more complicated. And so on the ride to the game, we're going to require that they do ride the bus. If we have a JV and a varsity team going together to a site, we'll have 2 buses instead of 1 to make sure that the distancing can be there. But keep in mind, a bus can hold 70-something kids, and our teams are going to be, in the high teens at most. So there'll be plenty of space to spread out, windows open, and then we can really go in with the attestation that they've been screened and that they're ready to roll. After the game, the parents, in the normal world as well, will be able to take their kids home with them, and that's pretty normal. But that's the plan with the busing.
Well, hopefully it clears up by basketball, because it'll be a cold ride home with all the windows open.
It will, and I was part of the task force for reopening of sports in my role as the president of the VPA, and we are going to be reconvening shortly because we're supposed to have recommendations for the winter sports out by the mid-October, and it took us a while to get there. I would say that I am not optimistic that we'll have winter sports because of the indoor nature and the close contact nature of basketball itself. But that's nothing official. That's just my gut, having heard all these guys talk. So.
All right, I have a question from somebody in chat. I don't know if they want to be identified, but the question is for Bob and Bill to see if there is something they should do to stay in contact as they choose to homeschool but hope to be back for 8th grade.
So yeah, I think, we obviously will love to work with families to ensure that we get them back. There's a couple of families I've reached out with and communicated with. At the high school level in particular, we've offered for them to access VTVLC curriculum so they could stay a Leland and Gray student and just work remotely using the VTVLC program. But in the middle school, those are less accessible. So yeah, we certainly welcome them back, and a parent can re-enroll their kid at any time. So we're happy to do that, especially, I don't know, like on October 1st maybe. So we get our census count, but really anytime. So yeah, just stay in touch and let us know. I guess in the spring probably is the best plan if you're talking about the following year.
Great, thanks, Bob. All right, did anybody else have any questions? No. All right. Moving along to our newly formed communications committee.
We had our first meeting as a communications team this past week, and it was attended by Lindsay Beecham, myself, Howie, and Dana. We did invite Patty Dixon, a member of the Jamaica community who's expressed interest in communication, but was unable to attend. So we spent our time, we were together for a couple of hours. The first part of our time together was identifying like a SWOT analysis activity where we looked at what are the strengths that this board has regarding communication. What are some of the weaknesses that we've identified? What are some of the assets that we have that we can start to leverage differently to improve our current communication practices? And then a few threats, like the things that are getting in our way of being successful. So after we kind of came to consensus around like, well, these are some things that we do really well. Like we value communication. We know that our town constituents want to know what's going on and where these decisions are coming from. A lot of the weaknesses kind of came from let me see if I can pull it up here. There seems to be some degrees of inconsistent engagement with the community. There's a whole lot of communication when it comes time for budget season, but there's a little like lagging communication that happens at other times of the year. There's a sense that's been reported to the board members that it feels like there's a little bit of like a lacking of a 20-year long-term plan. So we got a lot of feedback around areas that we can address, or at least bring to the full board's attention, and work towards addressing some of those needs or some of those perceptions. Once we did our SWOT analysis, we did a needs assessment. So we looked at what are our short-term goals and things that we need to do immediately, and then like what are our long-term concerns that we can spend some time working on. Long-term, we would like to figure out a central access point where community members will be able to find board-related data. We really need to flesh out this website, web page, online presence experience that we have. But I think that's going to be a much bigger and longer discussion that's beyond just the scope of communications. I think that's more of like a hierarchical organizational conversation that needs to happen. And we also, we're hoping to create and maintain some kind of email list for community members that are interested in receiving email updates. That is a long-term goal because there's hundreds of folks within each town and each community. So that would be like thousands of emails and a very long listserv that could be created if that's something that we think would be sustainable and valuable. The immediate short-term goals or needs that we identified was having our community right now to be as informed as possible, whether they attend a Zoom meeting or not. So until we can sort out the website plan, we wanted to have a weekly or a bi-weekly update to our communities that we could kind of summarize, like these are like the big things that are being discussed at the West River School Board meetings. And then that information would be shared on the known platforms that we have access to, which would include Front Porch Forum. I know locally the Jamaica Journal is looking for content for September, so we would be sharing with them. As well as the Jamaica Facebook page that's organized and run by Karen Amadin. Another thing we would like to do is develop like a list of contacts within each community. That way, like I know how to communicate with folks in Jamaica fairly well because this is my town. But knowing that we need to include every community that this board serves, where are those touch points? Where are those keystones within the surrounding communities that we could then distribute or share information with? So after we did that process, we drafted like a 3 main highlights. Like, we're sorry for the missed opportunity in regular communication, but here's where we're at with our long-term vision and that long-term planning process, where we had the 11 or the original 10 options that then became 4 that then stretched out to 11 and then got put on hold because we're living through a global pandemic and some issues are a little bit more pressing right now than others. So we have like a brief synopsis of what had been done and where we're at now. Regarding the school board outreach and communications, there's a summary around that, identifying the need to simply communicate more and at least improve the current practices that we have. And then looking ahead, opportunities where are we at with our reopening plans? What kind of resources might we be able to kind of collate and then also share out as part of our communications piece? So that's what we talked about.
Wow, that's great. Thanks, Keegan. So Bill, since this subcommittee has been formed, what do we need to do or for them to record meetings, or what do we need for them going forward? Do we need to?
Well, I think that, first of all, impressive. One meeting, that is a really deep dive and really thoughtful, really, really impressive, the four of you. Thank you for doing that. I think it'd be important for the board to give this committee some funds to be able to at least consider exploring whatever support that they identify that they need. And you know, the board can either decide that this committee can spend up to a certain amount of funds, or the board could have the committee come back and go, these are the plans that we'd like to use to support a listserv, or to create a centralized website that grabs information from all the different individual places that you've talked about. I don't know exactly. I'm just saying we don't want to impede the progress that this committee can make. And so if the board is willing to either give them some latitude on some money, or at least ask them to bring back some ideas of how they would want to spend some money. And then the follow-up question to that would be, you know, then it would be up to me and Lori and the principals to go find that money, because we obviously don't have that budgeted. But I think that that has to be a pathway, because the communications to the community is so important. That's at the top of my mind.
Yeah, no, I would 100% agree with that. And I think probably the best route, sounds like you're going to meet fairly often. So you will probably be meeting again before our next board meeting. So yeah, maybe it might make sense to, as Bill was saying, kind of come up with kind of a plan. Maybe you could even touch base with Lori on, you know, maybe costing out some stuff, to come back with an idea of what potentially you would or want to spend for this. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, so just for that, speaking of, so if you have another meeting in a couple weeks, Bill, do we need to provide a Zoom account for them and warn it?
Yes, so now that we have a chair, I can work to support the chair in setting up meetings and providing a Zoom link so that it can be communicated out. And I will say that the chair did a great job of making sure that the meeting was properly warned and getting out there. So I appreciate that very much, Keegan. But yeah, I will absolutely support the chair in setting up those meetings.
Excellent. Yes, great job.
Can I ask
Mike?
a question?
Oh, yeah, sure. And then Mike.
Okay. So the drafted language that that I prepared and then shared out with the committee, and then shared with all of you, what is the process by which that language gets approved for sharing with the public? Because as eloquent as I can be, I want to make sure I'm not just eloquent. I want to make sure that we're accurate in the information that we're summarizing and sharing. Do you know how that works? Like, could I don't know what to do.
I think that's a great question. Yeah, I think if you bring, I don't know, how should we do that? I mean, it would be kind of cumbersome if they had to every time come to us to say, yes, does this sound right? And is this what we should communicate out? That seems a little cumbersome.
That's different, Al, excuse me, but that's different from how other committees have operated so far, right? Like policy doesn't just bring in a policy passed. But I do see the time is of the essence factor too.
Yeah, I think both you, Al, and you, Mike, are correct. So I think you're going to want to have a general thing that if time makes sense, the board should see something before it goes out. And if it had to be super fast, if there's election coming up, something immediate happened, I don't, you know, for example, the board could say, we empower the communications committee to communicate through the pathways that they so choose about X. And then also for this long-term, really thoughtful work that you've shared with us, Keegan, that could be kept today, reviewed, and then, as Mike kind of said, kind of go through the policy process of approving these formal communications that would go out. I think you're going to have to deal with it on individualized basis, but kind of have a general process of how you would go do it.
Okay. So follow-up clarifying question, the 3 points that kind of summarize the work that has been done regarding the long-term vision and design for the school, regarding the outreach and communication goals that the board is on board with, and then our plans for looking ahead regarding like the sharing of future information. This current document that was shared, is that okay to kind of put out there so we can start the sharing of information? Or
I mean, it'll be up to the board, but everything in there is factually correct. And it is very inviting to people. We're starting this process. We want to keep you informed. But I don't know if the board has read the document to the level that they would feel like they could approve it or not tonight.
Yeah, I'm not sure how everybody else feels, but we may want to hold that to the next meeting, but certainly I'll take questions. Mike, and then Lindsay, and then Howie.
Sure, thanks, Al. Yeah, I would like to hold it till the next meeting so everybody can, read it and have a fresh view of it. My points that I was going to say a few minutes ago were more, I do understand that we might need some, money for, websites or whatever, but we've been down that road before. So, we're happy to see, us getting on a consistent game there. But I would think that the SU would have a lot of the emails for any listserv we'd need, and maybe the SU could, I don't know if it's okay, so Bill, feel by all means chime in, but if you guys basically sent out an opt-in email saying, hey, the West River District is trying to have a listserv going here, and you can opt in to get regular communications directly from the board. I think that would be a reasonably cheap and highly effective way to get going, and then other people who want to get on the listserv have a link to join up.
That is definitely the kind of support that we could provide, kind of that technical, very specific, something already exists and we're going to repurpose it to assist. But I did like your language, because we have to be very, very careful about sending something out, allowing people to opt in. This is what we're planning on doing, and allowing them to opt in.
Right, I think that's critical. It's not, that's the way, it's not you pushing it, it's them choosing. All right, that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Mike. Lindsay, and then Howie.
Thanks. So my thought was just that it may be, if there's a situation where time is of the essence, it may be effective to at least run some press release or wording or anything that we are putting out to the public as a communication committee, at least run it by the board chair and have Al look at it, or maybe all of the officers, because it doesn't necessarily need to be that the whole meeting or the whole board comes together for a meeting. It could just be as quick as shooting an email out to the officers and saying, we would like to send this out, and could you let us know in the next day whether you have any changes or if there's anything that's factually incorrect or whatever. And at least then there may be a little bit of bigger board oversight to communications going out on behalf of the entire board.
That sounds fair. Thanks, Lindsay. Go ahead, Howie.
Yeah, I want to thank Bill for bringing up the fact that this is going to require some money. And I just want to, go into the money part of it a little bit further. The kind of money we need here is a budget that is going to pay somebody on a weekly basis to keep our communications channels updated. We've been down this road many a time. In my 20 years, I've seen many different incarnations of websites. I've seen a lot of money put out. At this point, we have the websites. We just don't have somebody who is taking charge of these websites and making sure that they're presentable and communicating current information. That, it's not a matter of creation of a new site. It's a matter of allocating resources on a weekly basis to keep these sites updated. So when we're thinking about, where the money comes from, I urge you, Bill, to, thinking about it on a regular outlay basis. And I also want to say this is a really urgent sort of matter, because right now we're online. Our whole school is online, and people are moving up to Vermont and making decisions. They're buying houses online, and they're looking at schools online. So the web presence that we put out goes out to just more than our immediate community. This is the presence that the world looks at, and people look at when they consider, relocating here. So I really hope that we jump on this and get somebody. Once we have somebody whose job is to look after this stuff on a weekly basis, it'll all fall into place. Whether it's a listserv, whether it's a chat room on our website, that person will make it all happen and keep it going. But without maintenance, whatever we do is just going to look like crap shortly after we do it. So that's my piece on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Hallie.
Al, can I just hop on that thought real quick?
Yeah, please.
So I think while we were having our discussion around the needs for communication, I'm viewing this as like two separate pieces. There's the information that needs to be consolidated and drafted and released. And then there's this separate concern of the platform, the website, the maintenance, and things like that. I think for the immediate needs that we have, just drafting language and providing updates should be our more pressing matter. And then as we have conversations and consensus around what the form of our updated website or page within a website or listserv or what have you, I think the immediate need is starting a conversation and then figuring out where those conversations can live is a separate piece. That's just my interpretation. And thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Lindsay, is that a new hand?
No, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Come up with a question. No, I'm kidding.
I just want to say that we have outdated information up here right now. If you go on the web and try and figure out what's going on with our schools, it is a very confusing situation. So, I agree with everything Keegan says, with the addition of, I think that it's really urgent that we get somebody either in the IT department, somebody needs to step up ASAP and get the websites either taken down or updated.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al. Yeah, I mean, I can certainly see both points. Platform certainly sounds like maybe a little bit longer term dig in, and the communication that's something that can be done fairly immediately. And I don't know, Keegan, I don't know what your plan was, but certainly all the principals have Facebook pages and et cetera that the information can get communicated out. So Mike, I think I see a hand.
Yeah, it's a new hand. We actually started part of this conversation with talking about the committees and the Zoom, and so that's something policy committee is going to be needing to meet. But what I ran into last time was, because I wasn't the person who set up the Zoom, I could not record it, and I couldn't get in touch with the person who set it up at that late time. So I'm sure, yeah, now that I've communicated that to Bill, that we can fix that. But that is policy committee will be meeting soon, just so people know that. And then back to the importance of the communications and the websites, I couldn't agree more. It is our face to the world. we do suffer from not maintaining some of the things that we have, and that's why this committee is so important. So yeah, I'm glad we're getting on it. That's all.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Go ahead, Dana.
So our mission before the next meeting is the communications committees to meet and we to move on action as far as financial and possible movement of cleaning up the websites, right? Is that what we're tasked?
I'm not sure about cleaning up the website between now and then, but seems like a lofty goal.
Well, I'm looking for action.
Yeah. No, what I'm gleaning is the action would be we probably want to hone in maybe on a number, something that you would want us to budget.
Well, that could be dangerous.
It could be, right?
Yeah.
Certainly, we'll give a range and then itemize it, and then our responsibility will be to look at all the information that Keegan and team have provided to give a thumbs up on that communication when we come back on the 21st.
Hey, Al?
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Just so people know, I know we've mentioned it before, but the old out-of-date West River website, I'm pretty sure, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure that is redirected to the SU page that shows all the school boards and how to find the correct one. So at least we've done the first, obvious step, and then the committee will guide us through the rest.
So, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, no, just kind of to circle all that together. 90% of families in the community get their information from the school websites and school Facebook pages and that mode. And the WCSU, because it's responsible for 8 towns and 5 school districts, is way more of a repository of kind of legal functions. And so I'm looking forward to assisting the communications committee in understanding what they want to create. And then maybe there's some information that can be repackaged from that functional website that maybe is much more storytelling, kind of like Howie talks about, where we're telling a story to the community, we're telling a story to other people that are coming, and that becomes the default place where these other things filter into. We simply don't have anybody on staff. We don't employ anybody on staff that does any webmaster types of things. We are just a highly just functional IT, keep the trains running. We're unbelievably lean. So we don't have the horses that can deliver this, which is why I'm glad that we're talking about it, because it's a very specific vision. And I agree with everyone that it's needed. I just want to be clear, we don't have anybody on staff at the WCSU that has the skills or time to do this work, especially in a COVID environment. So I'm really proud that you guys have moved forward in this way. And I am here to help and assist. I just felt like I needed to make that clear.
Bill, that's a great point. I mean, yeah, go where the people are. 90%, that's a pretty high number. So you want to hit them where they are. Let's see, I've got Ken, and then I think Keegan. Go ahead, Ken.
Okay, 2-part question. One, Bill's saying 90%. Is that 90% of parents or 90% of voters?
Parents, I have no idea where voters are getting their info.
Okay, so
I don't have data on that, so I couldn't give an informed opinion.
Okay, so part 2 is, would it be possible for us to reach out to the town clerks and see if we could have a school link on their websites that they could just click on it and go, our school district, and go to the school district. I know we separate the two because of budgets and everything, but for information wise, if you want school information, And you can go to the town website, Newfane in Jamaica, Brookline, Townsend, Wyndham, and possibly have a link going over to the school's website. Just a possible.
No, I think that's the kind of thinking that this communications committee is going to be working on. They're going to be talking through and thinking through those possibilities to connect not only parents, students, families, but citizens, voters, community.
Okay, so where can I find the link to their next meeting?
I'll send it to you, Ken.
It'll be right up on the website, right? Awesome. Thank you.
Well, Ken, I'm just looking at the Townsend, the unofficial Townsend website. And it does have, some information about the WRED on there, and as well as a link. So I'm not sure about the other towns. Good question, Ken. Go ahead, Keegan.
So this is just to point out the notes that I've shared, the 3-point summaries with like, this is what we've been doing. We're trying to reach out. We're trying to get our communication started. If we wait until September 21st, the kids would have been remote learning for a few weeks. I think it might be helpful to have updates around what that's like, how it's been going for like the first few weeks. So my question is, for this committee to have the most frequent and up-to-date information for sharing and review, the document that I've shared is obviously going to be a lot different by the time the board meets again. So it doesn't sound like bi-weekly or weekly updates is going to be possible if we have to come together once a month to review the previous month's update. So I'm wondering, we're going to have to modify our goal from maybe instead of like a bi-weekly to maybe like a bi-monthly, like a 1st and 15th approach, because the board is going to need to have enough time to look at what's been updated, approve what's been updated, and then disseminate that information. Am I thinking about that the right way?
No, Keegan, I would say, this is just starting, right? Brand new to us, brand new to the board. I think once we get a cadence going and once we set up some guidelines, policy, procedure around it, then I think we'll probably be okay. And you would be able to communicate more frequently, or whatever guidelines we set up. So this is just kind of the first pass. So maybe we're a little clunky on it, but I think we'll get better. We have to, because you need to be able to do the good work that you're doing and communicate out to our community and families and parents and all that on a regular basis.
Right. I was starting to feel like I wandered down a rabbit hole. Like, wait, no, I'm so confused. Hold on, time out. But thank you.
We'll clean it up.
Thanks.
All right, go ahead, Lindsay.
I was just wondering if it's possible for, after the next time that the communications committee meets, is it possible to have the board officers approve a quick communication? And that would give you guys the opportunity to have reviewed the initial communication and then potentially a second one as well. And it may be a quick dump of 2 things for this first go round as we're kind of coming up with a system for this, but in an effort to not wait almost a full month until we're meeting again, perhaps if we meet in the next week or whatever it is for the communications committee, we can just following that, we could have like this initial communication that we're talking about, plus maybe one more that the officers approve, if the board could get behind that. That's my suggestion.
Lindsay, I think that's a good practical solution until we get something in place, and would certainly entertain that motion to allow the chair and the officers to approve on their behalf.
I would make that motion for the board to allow the officers to approve 2 communications from through the communications committee, I guess.
Dana will second it.
All right. I don't know if I need to do a roll call, but let's go thumbs up first. Ken, there you are. All right, is there anybody opposed? All right, seeing none, motion carries. There you go, Keegan, we met you.
Thank you.
Excellent suggestion, Lindsay. Very good. And really appreciate all the work that you have done so far. Amazing, incredible amount of work in a very short period of time. And there it is. All right. Well, does anybody else have anything else in regards to the Communications Committee report? Oh, Dana, I see your hand.
I just want to say kudos to the Communications Committee, even though I'm on it. I mean, we brainstormed for 2 hours, and it was a very good meeting. So, good job, everybody.
Thanks, Dana. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, did we need to vote as a board to authorize Bill to, send out the email offering an opt-in? Are we gonna, are we taking that forward tonight too, or?
I think we should wait until we have a little bit more of a firm footing underneath us. Maybe next time it might be good, but I think it might be too soon to start that. That's just my current thought right now.
I would agree with you, Keegan.
And mine would be purely logistical. If we can wait till school starts so we get all that communication back from parents, so
Yeah.
we know how to communicate them.
I just wanted to make sure the wheels could roll if they were ready, but I will defer to the committee's guidance.
Tires aren't on, Mike. Tires aren't on.
Go ahead, Howie.
As Bill said, I guess everybody gets their information from the school website. So I went to the Leland and Gray website, and at the top there is a link to the WCSU COVID-19 page. And so I just wanted to ask you, Bill, could you update that, please? Because the most recent missive is from August 3rd at the top of the page. And I know we have more, recent information than that. So that's my last piece on this.
We may not have one that goes to all WCSU. We have communications that go to very different groups. So only global things go there.
Yeah, but it just looks, when somebody there, the school is linking to your page, the WCSU page, and the most recent memo is 8/3. So it just makes people feel, I look at that and I say, well, that can't be the most recent info that's up there.
But it might be the most recent info that is universal to every WCSU district. We have 5 districts.
So maybe a note to that effect on the site so people don't get confused. Because it just appears, look, if it appears to me that it looks out of date, it's appearing to other people that it looks out of date just by the fact that it says August 3rd at the top. So, all right, thanks.
Thanks, Hal. Mike, new hand or Mike? Nope. I guess that's an old hand. All right. So I'm. Nope.
Sorry,
Dana?
that was an old hand.
That was okay. Dana?
Hey, Bill, you got an update on how it's going so far with the HVAC problem? I know it's a touchy thing, but.
Oh, you're on mute.
They are coming next week. If all goes well, they'll be on site on Friday. At the latest, they'll be on site on Monday, and they'll be visiting the elementary schools first.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. All right. Well, I can't even believe this. It's 8:26. We've got 4 minutes. I mean, if you guys want to Play a game? No, okay.
Are you looking for a motion? Are
Our
you
ne-
looking for a motion?
Our next meeting is September 21st at 7 p.m. And yes, I am looking for a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thumbs up. Anybody opposed? Didn't think so.
I'm in the dark.
Yeah.
Al, you've got the recording and you'll share it.
I will share it with the appropriate people this time. Thank you. Now that I know who they are.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.